Up next on Inside the SCCA, catching up with the big boss. Welcome to Inside the SCCA. I'm Brian Bielanski. Tonight, depending on where you're at around the world, we have a very special guest. Mike Cobb is with us. Mr. Cobb, welcome.
Good evening. Good afternoon, wherever you are.
This is one of our momentous episodes, episode 150.
Wow.
And this is your third official appearance, because we've had you on from the Solo Nationals a little bit and from the runoffs a little bit.
Yep.
But this is your third appearance here on the show. And back at your first one was episode 50. And I was like, episode 50, what are we going to do special? Let's ask the boss. Let's ask let's ask the big guy. So I got you. You say, yeah, sure, great. And then I put you in a corner. I asked you live on the first on episode 50, you know what would be great if you come back every 50 episodes? You're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I got a hold of you around episode 100, because episode 100 fell at a weird time. I don't remember what it was. I think we finally got you at 102. And you came back. I was like, he's coming back for the. And then I said, hey, you know what? We're coming up on 150. And Mike's like, I'm in. So how are you?
Absolutely.
How are you?
I'm great. Well, I mean, you've got to, this is an award-winning podcast, don't you know? I believe, if I'm correct, that Inside the SCCA was a award-winning top of the podium podcast for 2023. So congratulations to you, sir.
Yeah, we did something right. I'm not quite sure how. All of us media types, we are part of the, many of us are part of the National Motorsports Press Association. It's like the Society of Professional Journalists, the AP, that kind of stuff of motorsports people who do this. And like all of those competitions, we have the opportunity to put our name in and submit our podcast, whatever our work is in our particular categories. And you put your stuff up against people who are doing stuff, in this particular case, NASCAR podcasts and Formula One podcasts and IndyCar podcasts and some cool little indies like us. We all put our name in, and we hope at the end that we get, maybe even get a mention of some sort. So, and so I put mine up 2 years ago. Nothing. Not even a mention. I was like, God, I'm small potatoes, I'm never, they're not going to do this, So I put one up 2 years ago. Last year, nothing. I'm like, you know what? Why am I even going to do it? Okay, I'll put up one more time. So you know what the key is, Mike?
Persistence?
No, put up a podcast where the race car driver is also a Playboy photographer.
Oh, okay. That might be referring to one Danny Stain.
It is. Yeah. He and I did a show, and it was a ton of fun. He is, of course, a character.
He is.
And
he gave me a big kiss on the Tire Rack Pole Awards platform at VIR, as you recall.
Yep.
He won 2 pole awards, and so he thought he'd bless me with 2 kisses on stage that night. So
I love it.
He's a bit of a character.
He is a bit of a character. And so it was that, and I put up a couple of others. And so Monday morning comes along after the awards ceremony, which was in Charlotte, which, of course, I wasn't going to Charlotte for an awards ceremony that I knew I wasn't going to get an award for. And they send out the email with all the, congratulations to all the award winners. And I'm scrolling through it. First of all, I couldn't find the podcast category. It was some reason tucked under television. So I find it, and I read the third place. No, it wasn't me. I'm like, second place. I'm like, oh, definitely, I'm done. And I get to third place, and it says Inside the SCCA, Brian Bielanski. And I'm like, what? That is crazy. So I went, and I took a shower, and I came back, and my name was still there. It was still there. Right. And then I went and fed the dog, and I came back, and my name was still there.
It's real.
And I was like, wow, this can't be happening. And of course, a lot of folks started sending me emails and texts and congratulations, and but I was really proud, of course, of this, because I've built the whole thing, the set, the engineering, and we've had mostly good success on the technical side of it. This is in a 10x10 bedroom in my house. So I'm proud of all of that, and I'm proud of all the guests we've had on. What I'm really proud of, honestly, Mike, is that this is a podcast about the largest and most successful amateur road racing organization in the United States, and its content was good enough to win amongst all those other giants.
Right.
And it says a lot for the club, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you've nailed it. I mean, I think there's a ton of passion, I hope, for the club, but I think there's also a ton of passion for grassroots motorsports in general, right? And that's the beast we're here to feed. So hopefully that's a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of formula.
Yeah. I had fun with it. I have fun with it every week, and we keep getting great guests with great stories, and it's all about telling stories. You know, Mike, it's great to have you on here, but I got to tell you, this probably will not have as many views as the podcast with Danny Stain.
I think I understand a couple reasons why.
Yeah, you know, but we've got there's no shortage of great members with great stories. Right. And it's been great that most of them have said yes when I ask, and so it's good for, I think it's good for the club, and it's good for everybody involved.
It's absolutely good for the club, and I want to thank you again for your support of the club and your engagement with us on multiple critical topics over the last 12-18 months, because I think it is making a difference in reaching the population that's interested. I mean, quick side note, not directly tied to the podcast, but directly tied to something you're also involved with, and that is the Hoosier Super Tour Driver's Eye streaming streamcast, if you will, of the Super Tour and the runoffs. I mean, we had I believe it's over 300,000 views of the 23 Super Tour and the runoffs, and over 100,000 hours watched. And I mean, both of those might be small potatoes, using your reference for other folks, but for us, that's I think we've had about a 3,300% increase in YouTube over the last 4 years. And 90% of that, Brian, was driven by the engagement around Driver's Eye Super Tour and runoffs, which you are inextricably woven into, you and your partner in crime, Mr. Ginsburg. So we thank you for that.
Greg 5G Ginsburg and of course Brendan Kesmerick and all the guys and gals over at Driver's Eye do a fantastic job on the production side of that. We've had up to this point, and the cool part about YouTube, Mike, and you know this, it never goes away. So it's going to live on YouTube for eternity until you guys turn off the channel, which I hope you never do. And Sebring alone, we have had up to this point, and it's still growing, more than 40,000 views just on Friday, Saturday, Sunday at Sebring.
Yep.
So when I say that, I want to be gentle with it, or I don't know how, couch it maybe a little bit. Sebring's the perfect storm. Okay, it's in January. Everyone's got cabin fever. There's no other motorsports on television on that particular weekend. So we're not competing with anything else on that weekend. So, and of course, it's Sebring, and we've got 365 or 370 cars.
Right.
So it is the perfect storm for a great YouTube broadcast. I don't imagine that when we have Buttonwillow or maybe Portland or wherever, some of these smaller venues that maybe people aren't quite so used to, we're probably not going to get 40,000 views. But if we're 15, 20% higher this year at every event than we were last year, that's a huge number.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's something I think that, and the engagement that we get from the what I call the associate producers in the chat. We're now giving away, the Inside the SCCA podcast is giving away an associate producer swag gift at every Super Tour. We're going to pick one person who's engaged in the chat, and they're going to get something. Brian Straczynski of the famed Straczynski Formula V family got the first one for Sebring. And all of that. So every weekend we'll be giving away at least one. I'll be giving away at least one, maybe two things to people who are in the chat, being engaged. So, and that's a lot of fun too. We get such good stuff, Mike, from the people in the chat. They're so knowledgeable. And what's also cool, if you've looked at the chat at all, we're getting people who literally know nothing about the SCCA, car people who stumble upon us.
Right.
And they're asking great questions, like when they see a GT3 car, they're thinking it's like the FIA GT3, and we're having to explain it to them that it's a little different. It's our version. But it's really fun to see who we're reaching with that telecast or with that broadcast.
Absolutely get it. And just for visibility, I do watch on YouTube, and I do watch the chat. I am not approved to enter any social media chat forum
What?
based on the marketing team's direction and supervision. So
Oh, okay.
I'm
Okay.
trolling you guys.
So which is your unsolicited screen name that we should be looking out for? Who's in that chat?
I think I'm really only actionable and highly participatory on Instagram,
Okay.
where I'm just 51 LE, and
Gotcha.
I think I have my Australian Shepherd Sky Blue as my icon there. So, and I don't do family, I don't do politics, I
Right.
don't do anything. I only do cars and SCCA folks and just silly stuff like that. But with our new hire, Miss Langley, who came on and joined Andy Alvin and Kristen Poole and the marketing team, she's going to focus. Langley's going to focus pretty much 100% of her time on social media going forward.
Great.
So I'm pretty excited about how we're going to grow those channels going forward. We had good growth in 23, but we've never had in the history of the club, Brian. This is 2024, and I'm embarrassed to say it. We've never had a dedicated social media manager,
Right.
and now we have.
That's
So
great.
I think that's going to be really helpful to help us multiply, more views, more exposure, more connections in those channels, which are mission critical to growth.
Right. Right. Since we're kind of in that sector, let's go to the sports car conversation. Behind you is the cover from the final issue, the final printed issue for now. I'm going to say it for now because we can always be hopeful, of Sports Car Magazine. After, I don't remember how many issue it was 40 some years.
40 years, 400. This is our 462nd issue, I believe. I'm no Paul Fanner, but he shared that number with me a couple occasions. I believe that's accurate.
Okay. A lot of folks sad to see it go.
Yep.
Some folks say I never read it. So some folks say I only switched. I thumb through to the one column I want to read. I know Randy Popst has a lot of love out there, and
Absolutely.
But definitely the way, and we were talking about it before, and I'm in radio, the way people consume their information these days is changing rapidly. And, even us radio station folks are trying to find ways to be engaged with our audiences, to look at how the future of radio is going to be. Frankly, it's way too expensive to operate a transmitter. It costs over $1 million a year to operate a high-power transmitter. And why would you necessarily do that if there are ways to get it just as easily for almost all of your audience? There will be some people who won't have the internet or won't have a phone, but that's these days very, very rare. And most people are still consuming our radio, but they're consuming it through their phones. It's not like they're not listening to our product, but they're getting it in a different way. Right. Same kind of thing is happening here. Digital media has changed so much. Most magazines are going away. There are only a few that are hanging on, and I don't even know how strong they are, and how much money they're making or losing hanging on. And but the decision was made to cease the printing version of Sports Car, and actually cease Sports Car altogether. I think some people were under the impression that Sports Car was going to live on, but in a digital format. That's actually not going to happen in the traditional sense. So let's start with the short term. What's the short-term way that the members are going to get their info these days and going forward on what the club is doing month to month, week to week kind of stuff?
Right. So I just want to back up, and I don't want to correct you, but I just want to make
Correct
sure.
me.
Sometimes we use terms. I get in trouble sometimes because I take the English language and then totally bastardize it and use words in ways that regular folks don't use them. But the content, our goal is for the content to not go away. So a lot of the columns, feature articles, anniversaries, and much more will be moving over to scca.com. And based on the fact that that's a real-time publication, right? Hopefully that will be more timely in terms of being able to get that information out. So the other thing that probably will happen is you probably receive a weekly update from the SCCA called Up to Speed, and I believe it's pinned from carry speed. And if all of our members, part of the thing I'm doing is I go around to all the division meetings. I ask in each general session, ask folks, how many of you receive up to speed? And typically about half the hands go up.
Right.
And so I say, okay, so for the rest of you who aren't getting it, that is the weekly publication of news you can use about the club. It's not just about programs. It's about the board. It's about hiring. It's about programs. It's about club spec, road racing, road rally, rallycross, time trial, you name it. It's about the whole gamut, but it comes out every week. So that is a key communication channel for us, period, and a growth channel for us going forward. The other thing that
real quick, I've been asking. This is episode 150. Okay, you've been on now 3 times,
right?
But I still haven't had Carrie Speed on the show yet. So
she's very elusive, or he's very elusive. I'm not sure.
Can you help me with that?
Yes, I think I can. I'm probably going to pivot you to one Kristen Poole,
okay,
to help you track down the elusive Carrie Speed. But yes, she's about as elusive as Jack Track, Brian. So if we ever find the two of them in one place, we'll know the world is close to ending. But yeah, we'll work on that one. But the reality is, as I go around and I started the conversation with Paul Fanner in Racer Media and Marketing, who's been publishing sports car for 40 years and has done a fabulous job. I mean, gosh, we started this conversation well over a year and a half ago. And, the reality is Paul's business model is changing.
Right.
Our business model is changing. And I know when I use the terms business model, sometimes that's off-putting terminology to folks in the club. But as I talk to folks at convention, as I talk to folks through the president updates, as I'm talking to folks at the division meetings, one thing I absolutely want to squash is, somebody at the CDIV meeting just last weekend said, well, Mike, I just don't think it's right that you're killing the magazine because you don't like magazines. And I went, whoa. I love magazines. It's not about what Mike likes. It's about what is the right channel. Let's do it this way. Do you know what the biggest marketing spend historically in the SCCA annual budget is? What item?
I'm going to guess it's sports car, right?
Yeah. And so that's great. And here's the downfall of that. We spend the biggest marketing dollars aren't necessarily purposed to reach those you already have. Marketing dollars are typically spent to invest and bring new folks into the fold, right? So if our largest line item from a budget standpoint has historically been sports car, that's not necessarily bad, but it just leaves us a lot less working capital to do the outreach things. We just talked about Langley King joining us as a social media manager to invest in talent and technology going forward to increase our reach.
Right.
And so on getting to, well, Mike, what will some of the dollars be repurposed for that if you're not publishing sports car and going even further, and why am I not going to get a membership break or rebate based on not receiving sports car?
Oh, you beat me to it.
Well, they go hand in hand. So let's just go ahead and lean into both of them now. That is because we will be investing those dollars in a web-based platform that will be able to deliver that sports car content more effectively going forward. And I'm sure you're aware of this, and hopefully listeners are aware of this. To rebuild a new SCCA.com is not a small undertaking in terms of time, money, and resources. That is a big thing that we need to figure out is how to better, how to deliver a better experience. If we're so much focus on experience in our program delivery, I would argue that improving that at SCCA.com is pretty important as well.
Right.
And the other thing is we're going to be investing some of those dollars in talent to help us feed other channels, social media channels, et cetera. And, kind of tied to this, we did a survey inside the convention, virtual convention, which we just got done in January, which is, by the way, was the largest national virtual convention that we've had to date. We had well over 1,000 participants across a week and a half. But we asked a question that handshakes with this, and the question was, growing the SCCA in 24, what impacts or excites you the most? And these aren't staff answers. These aren't board member answers. These are membership answers, right? And what they said was over half of the respondents said process improvements to improve member experience was number one response.
Sure.
Number two was partner engagement to benefit members in the club as a whole. And number three was program leader and event official focused training and development. And number four was staffing additions, promotions to improve bandwidth, service deliverables, and visibility for the club. So a lot of those things have a technology/investment handshake with them. And that's the path that we're on. So, I get it. I love analog. I love magazines. I actually have my 462nd issue on my desk right here tonight because I was reading it.
Yep.
Just got it. And yeah, we're going to try to pivot a lot of that content into SCCA.com ASAP. We'll make additional investments in our weekly email piece. We'll focus on improving SCCA.com, which is a huge lift. And we'll add additional talent and horsepower to help us do a better job of the channels we're currently not present in, and or we're really spread too thin from a staff standpoint to care and feed those going forward. And I think across those 4 or 5 things, I lost count, that's really the primary focus going forward. So getting to the membership rebate piece, the dollars will be invested. They will be reinvested in a different way.
Right. And you and I sat down at the runoffs. I kind of knew this was coming. It's no secret that Paul is a good friend of mine. And this podcast ends up on racer.com, which will continue happening.
Yep.
I also I won't speak at all for Paul. Paul's very good at speaking for himself. But the relationship between racer.com and the SCCA is not ending by any stretch of the imagination.
That is correct, sir.
Paul is I don't think there's anybody who loves this club more than Paul Fanner. And the heart and soul that he's put into sports car for 40 years is evident, and he has expressed to me, and I think he's expressed to you, and anybody who's really asked him that the commitment and the work that Racer and Racer.com does is not going to end because sports car's gone away. So,
right.
And we will continue to have Inside the SCCA on Racer.com every week, like we have in the past. So, but yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of things changing, and we talked at the runoffs off camera, and when I said, I told you I was real honest with you, and I'll say it here live on the live stream, upping the social media game for the club. In my opinion, as has been evidenced by the YouTube live stream for the Super Tour, is probably the best thing that the club can do to bring in more younger members.
Right.
That's not that we don't want our older members. We don't love our older members. Frankly,
absolutely get it.
I'm getting to be one of those older members now. I'm one of those members that I bitched about when I was 25 that these old people don't want to, old farts as I used to call them. I want to change with the times.
Right.
And now I'm one of those people, and that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
But when I was around, it felt like there was a lot more 25-year-olds in the club than I feel like there are now. Maybe that's just a bad perception I have. But the place that we're going to be able to find those new members with the least amount of money spent is through social media. It does cost money to do it because you got to have the bodies to generate the content. But after you've come up with the content, sending it out is free.
Yeah.
So it's a big move and shift. Kind of like I always joke that now that we're in 2024, the club's caught up to 2010.
Right.
I think we've made even a bigger jump now that we're much closer to 2024 than we were. I would even say 18 months ago. So
yeah, let me speak a little hope to you. I mean, it was fun. Like I said, I was at CDEV this last week for their division meeting, which is actually syncs up with their annual awards presentation. And I was fortunate to be on stage with multiple 15, 16, and 17-year-olds. They're picking up their SARC awards for the division championship. All of them would probably have at least 2 or 3 laps on me through a sprint race.
And running and driving.
Yeah, and the weekend before that, I got to see another SCCA youngster who had just won a Spec Miata race at a race you were at in Sebring,
Yep.
stood on the top step of the Rolex 24 podium in LMP2, and that gentleman's name is Connor Zilch.
That's right.
So there's
Well,
you're absolutely right that we've got to do a better job of bringing more youth into the club, and I think we're actually seeing a fair amount of youth inside the club, and we just got to keep going.
right. I mean, an SCCA's, our Rookie of the Year award winner, Morgan Burkhart, he was also racing at the Rolex, not in the Rolex. He was in the Michelin Pilot Challenge, and but that was Morgan Burkhart. So, yeah, there's definitely some things happening that we have to be able to now be nimble enough. You and your staff need to be nimble enough to be able to take advantage of those opportunities and push that stuff out to social media. I sent out a post with a shot of Connor off of my television being interviewed.
I've got the same shot.
and I put it on the SCCA members Facebook page.
Right.
And of all of the things, and I'm on that page all the time talking about the podcast, of all of the things I've ever posted on that page, there were more than 500 engagements on that post.
Yeah.
And so it's being nimble enough to have someone who is watching the Rolex to be able to do that kind of stuff. It's not an SCCA event.
Yeah,
but
it's still,
it's us. It's our people doing their thing on the bigger world stage. And by having someone who is a social media focused person, that's just going to make it easier and better for you guys going forward. So that's a fantastic thing.
I should have sent the picture I had from turn 6, because speaking of Morgan Burkhart, we had a mechanical issue on our turn, and I was right there working that as a F&C worker, and I wasn't supposed to, don't tell my flag chief, but I got a picture of him right there. And I did, because I'm not on Facebook as a poster, and so I didn't have anything to do with it. But yeah, I should have just sent it to you, Brian, and let you do it. But
well, that's the thing. Now, but you would now have someone to send that to.
I do.
And that's fantastic. So. Any other longer term plans for as far as the repurposing of the budget for that was being spent on sports car?
Yeah, the other thing that's going on is, as you probably know, we've been inside our member registration portal, that what we call the member account portal. We've been working on that for since. It's unfortunate to commemorate it this way, but it's time-stamped in my mind this way. Had we not launched MAP in 2020, right before we were shut down with COVID, I think we'd be a very different organization today. So Amy, Tennis, John Bauer, Deanna Flanagan, the team in Topeka, Vance Jurgens, they've been working hard on that portal going forward, and to the point now where we kind of have, for the first time in the history of the club, membership, licensing, training certification from SCCA Academy, sanction, audit of sanction, all of that stuff in one platform, in one data lake, if you will, that's really making things much more efficient. And we've also been testing some registration functionality inside that platform. And this year, we will be, historically, you had registered for Starting Line, Time Trials National Tour, and Time Trials Nationals, and Track Night in America, all on SCCA.com. In 24, you will be registering for those programs inside that member account portal platform.
Okay.
That is a huge lift in terms of work. And just to give you a dimension of it, that's over 100 events, and it's over $2 million in potential annual revenue going through a channel that is more closely integrated to membership, licensing, waivers, sanction. I mean, the whole ball of wax. So instead of working through 5 or 6 disparate systems, I know I'm kind of getting in the weeds, but it's really mission critical to improving what folks said in the poll. Invest in things that improve the member experience.
Right.
Well, that is a huge component of something that we're investing in to improve the member experience. So yes, some of those dollars will be redirected into that continued investment as well. And I know that we just launched 7 Track Night in America events last Thursday. In fact, we have over 150 registrations through that system at this point. And the other cool thing about the way that system works is it makes membership much more readily accessible to folks. As you know, many folks who run track night, this is a great thing about the program, are not current members of the SCCA. So the way we have registration set up, there's a real-time invite to them right then and there when they're registering for the track night event to join the club. And out of that 150 that I just referenced, a good third or almost a third of those are raising their hand and joining the SCCA as part of that registration system.
Right.
So I
That's
think,
cool.
you know, a lot of those kinds of things are the things we need to continue to improve the experience and grow the organization. And that's what we're committed to investing to.
One suggestion, just I'll throw it out there, is trigger another ask the day after the event to the folks who didn't become a member. Put that automatically in the system. So the day after the event, there's another ask to become a member. Because while they're still hot, they had a great time. Now they'll spend another $100 to become a member. So
no, that's great. I mean, that program has the highest overall satisfaction score. Not belittling any of our other programs, but you know, when you're running a 99 overall satisfaction score, I think that's pretty damn good.
Oh, absolutely.
And hats off to the team, Hayward and Justin, and the team that run Track Night. They do a fabulous job.
One last point on social media, and then we're going to move on to other stuff because I could talk about that. That's my jam. The best thing our members can do is to do their own social media. Whenever you're out at events, take your pictures, take your videos, do a little Facebook Live, do an Instagram Live. It takes just a little bit of effort, but the member, are our best apostolizers. You're our best megaphone to tell people how much fun you're having, what a great organization we are. You know, it's always been, I would venture to guess that 50-60% of our members came to us through our members. You know, and now we have this wonderful way to tell people about what we do to hundreds of people for some of us, thousands of people for others, by just shooting off a Facebook post. You know, absolutely. I remember back in the day, in high school, my dad would pull me out of school on a Friday afternoon because we were going down to Mid-Ohio or something. And I'd tell my friends, oh, we're going racing. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know. Now I can actually show the whole thing on Facebook. And my cool factor at 53 is so much better than my cool factor was when I was 19 because I go do this fun stuff and people think it's really cool. It's still not a big cool factor, by the way, folks, but you know, an exponential jump for me was like a 2 to a 4. But no, but that's, you know, we're our best advertisers, our best marketers. So absolutely. So,
and my only add to that would be, please feel free to tag our partners in those posts.
Absolutely.
Use the official hashtags to just get additional reach out of it. And it's I know I don't do it right, and I'm going to get trained even further with Langley on board under Andy and KP. So I'm excited about that. But you're right. A multiplier that we have that many organizations do not have is what you just said.
Right.
Our rank and file can be the multiplier and a huge point of difference for it.
And I will say, I saw more social media come out of Sebring Super Tour than I did probably all 10 rounds last year combined.
Wow.
It was so many members, so many drivers, so many teams, so many wives, so many moms, so many, you know, doing their stuff from the racetrack. It was really, really incredible. And I'll be honest, the other thing is with Mazda coming on board with the Spec MX-5, they put in a ton of effort on social media at Sebring, which can only be helpful for us in that regard as well. So
we've had a good start with them. I mean, we had I made the miscue in my general session at the virtual convention of saying the first event of the year was at Sebring with the Spec MX-5. That was incorrect. So thank you, Florida Region, for correcting me. It was at Homestead a week before. I think we had about 10 plus cars, Spec MX-5s there. And we had over 20 at Sebring too. So excited to see. We're headed to NOLA's next for us next weekend, and Buttonwillow. And then Road Atlanta. So I'm excited to see what the turnout is. I know the spec shops are busy finishing cars and getting folks in them. So I think that's going to be, you know, we talked about some other things that went into the sports car issue around, you know, the future and what are we trying to focus on. And it's things like experience, access, and things like that, you know, and I can't think of a better way to access motorsports than through a spec class like Spec MX5
Right.
with
Right.
Mazda as a partner. It's just, yeah, I think it's going to be great. I'm excited about it.
Couple things in the chat, and Gary, I'm going to mispronounce your name again because I know I mispronounced it last week. I believe it's Gary DeCiso. He gets Carry Speed every week and loves reading it.
All right.
Greg 5G Ginsburg is in the chat. He tells me, and this makes perfect sense now, Mike. The reason I'm never going to get Carry Speed on is because Wednesday night is date night for Carry Speed and Jack Track.
There you go.
So they're out doing date night every Wednesday night, so they will never be on the show.
I think did that come from 5G himself?
It did.
Yeah.
It
I
did.
think there's much truth in that. He knows something I did not know.
Yeah. He also mentioned that we've got 24 of the Spec MX5 cars registered for NOLA.
Yeah.
Coming up in 2 weeks. So
it's going to be a good one.
It is absolutely going to be a good one. Okay. Let's before we change gears, let me do a real quick thank you. If you look up in the corner of your screen, you've got Racekeeper. You can see that logo. You're going to also see Ray Esports. Both of those are official partners here of Inside the SCCA. All the information about both Ray Esports, that's the sim racing that I do not very well on Saturdays with their Weekend Warriors. I would do their Tuesday night programs, but I'm in the middle of a podcast. And but Stevie Ray's stuff is great, so check out his link. And also, Racekeeper is the official in-car camera of Inside the SCCA. There's a link down in the show notes for those folks as well. That's what I use when I go to when I go autocrossing with the Inside the SCCA cars, and so check those folks out. Good products, good people. So, all right, moving on. The convention. You mentioned 1,000 people were at the virtual convention over the course of the however many days it was. Do you know the highest number of registrations we've ever had at an in-person convention? Just off the top of your head.
Touching right around 400 was the biggest one that I've been to in my time, which would be, I've been here, I'll be here 7 years, believe it or not, this June.
Okay.
And I think some of our biggest conventions were during that time period. So I think that's the number I'm going to stick with.
Okay. It just, and we've doubled that access for people by doing it virtually.
Absolutely.
And I know that there are folks who would love for the club to do in-person, conventions again. And I'd heard some rumors that there might be one every couple of years. Is that something that maybe is still on the potential table for the future?
I mean, it's always a potential. I tell you, the dynamic that has changed since the last brick and mortar event and today in 2024 is, as everybody knows this, who's paying for living,
right.
Hotels are incredibly higher, rental cars are incredibly higher, airfares are incredibly higher. I used to rent a car for a week to head from DFW to Topeka for $225 a week. It's now $425 a week. I mean, I'm not crying a river. Everybody's facing these same things, but that same thing has been a challenge to think about a brick and mortar event, especially when we can reach 3 to 4 times as many people virtually and have the IP collected in Zoom content that, to your point earlier, you can play back at your leisure if you miss a session or can't travel to Vegas or whatever. And then, the way it's kind of worked the last couple of years is I think there's absolute value for getting staff connected one-on-one with divisional regional leaders. Absolutely do not disagree with that. And how it's been working, how it worked well for us last year and how it's working well this year is through the divisional conventions that are following the virtual convention. And we've got, like I said earlier, at least 6 or 7 of those in the queue for, we just started with C-Div last week. We're going to Northeast Division this weekend, then Mid-Div, Great Lakes, and then Central Division. I think we're doing a Rocky Mountain Division virtual. So we'll reach another 500 to 650 attendees through that. And we're also, we also invested set aside about $25,000 to help support the divisions in those initiatives to help get, whether it was more turnout, more promotion, better facilities for the venues, better food. It really doesn't matter. We just kind of gave out division convention grants to help make that happen. And I think those worked very well for us last year without the investment seed, and I think they'll work even better for us this year. So
Right.
that model seems to be bearing fruit. So we're going to keep learning and growing through that, and kind of concurrent with that, just some quick metrics on where we're making some additional investment. We've also hit the 1,000 mark in terms of number of folks who have gone, who've ordered training through our SCCA Academy.
Oh, wow.
And a good quarter of those are folks who've taken the Corner Marshal FNC course, which I took and passed, believe it or not. And we're now working on the next level of that, which is with the blessing of John Doonan and the team at IMSA, we're going to develop an IMSA FNC certification module, and that's going to live inside SCCA Academy.
Right. That's fantastic. Speaking of IMSA and FNC, a little birdie told me that a guy named Cobb was at the Rolex this year waving flags. Tell us about your experience there.
I try to work every time I go someplace. Sometimes my volunteering efforts are less warmly received, but if you know the team at the Rolex, Jim Hooker was the FNC chief down there. He's awesome. The whole team is awesome. Brian, we actually had across the weekend, I think, around 225 flaggers working the Rolex. And I think that's the largest population I've ever seen down there. And I try to go to the Rolex pretty much every year. And I try to work when I go because, I love, I learn when I do that. I meet people that I don't meet all the time when I do that. I get sometimes I learn under fire. A certain gentleman, you might know him, Mr. Mo Overstreet.
Oh yeah,
who's a little bit of a legend.
I call him a curmudgeon. You could use the word legend.
Well, I guess he's a teddy bear, but he's. I was on break. I'll tell this story just real quick. I thought I was on break, and Mo comes over to me and says, "Cobb, get off your beep and get to the hole." If you've ever worked at 6, 6A is the hole.
Right.
And this sounds really amateur, but you do that by yourself.
Right.
So I'm better geared. So like if you and I were working a corner, I would feel real good because I can kind of follow you and you can work calm and talk to control, and then I don't have a whole lot of risk. But when I'm down in the hole by myself, I'm going the whole time I'm praying, okay, no incidents, nothing I have to call in, whatever. And I'm not down there 10 minutes before I got a slow moving car and I got to make a call. So I'm going, I grew up in solo, so I'm used to going, control, this is 3 and wait for him to call back. All that stuff. That's not the way you do it in road racing.
No.
Right? So I just kind of went, okay, I got to man up and do this. So I said, 6 waving white. And I just waited to see if someone said, "Hey, you're an idiot," and then control played it back because they copied it.
Yep.
Right? And then I thought, okay, well, come on, car, keep going because I don't know what else to say. And it didn't keep going. It came down on the apron.
Yeah.
So then I called the car number and the car, told him it was on the apron, and fortunately, it made it around to 7 before it needed to be towed off. But I got done with my stint. There were no additional calls. I was like sweating bullets. I get back, and Mo goes, "Hey, was that you on the comm?" And I said, "Well, it depends. If it was good, yes, that was me. And if it sucked, it was somebody else." And he said, "No, good job." Well, he didn't say good job. Mo didn't talk like that, but I think he said something like, "Well, that didn't suck." I'm sorry. Probably not supposed to say that on the podcast.
Oh, no. We have no rules here.
I think that's what he said. But anyway, I have a ton of respect for them. I learn from them. I have fun with them. For folks who don't know how I roll when I'm at an event, I typically have my ball cap on backwards. And so they did a ceremonial corner turn 6 ball cap, president ball cap on backwards picture.
Nice.
I have that. I just enjoy it. And, typically John Doonan will come over. He never sleeps during the Rolex.
Yep.
And he'll come over and say something to the team at the, 7 a.m. or whatever meetings. And, all the IMSA officials are fabulous, and I got nothing but mad props to say about that team. You keep in mind in Florida, as you know well, the group that worked the Sebring Super Tours, much of the same group that showed up at the Rolex, much of the same group that'll show up in March at Sebring.
Correct.
Much of the same group that'll work St. Pete. I mean, there's just there's no rest for the weary down there in Florida.
Right.
And they come from all over the country to do it. And they're fabulous. Yeah, I enjoy it.
Well, if you want to come out to play with us on the West Coast, you're always welcome at Buttonwillow, but we also have this cool little thing called the Long Beach Grand Prix.
Yes.
And the Cal Club workers staff that event, and, we invite folks from all over the country who come in to do it, just like Daytona 24. And if you'd like to come out, I guarantee you there's a spot on a corner there for you to come and play.
And Mr. Bielanski, I have worked that.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
But I would love to come do it again. Absolutely.
So that would be a ton of fun. All right. So what else is going on? I know you shared a bunch of stuff at the convention. We don't necessarily need to rehash all of that. Yeah. Let's do this. We've got about 15 minutes left. Let's go a little more. I don't know. What are you excited about right now?
Well, I'm excited about a lot of things. One, I just mentioned we just acquired a new tow truck for the solo tour. So hopefully that'll be I think our first date is February 23rd through 25th out in Phoenix. So we're excited about that. We've also got I think our first pro solo event is the first week of March down in Beeville. But we've got our first ever time trials event, not time trials national tour event, better said, in Vegas this month, February 17th and 18th. I believe that's either sold out or pretty close to being sold out. And we've also got right on the heels of that an event going at VIR, and we've got time trials national tour going to Road America this year.
Nice.
So don't out me on this, but I might have to find a rental car that I can class and get up there and do that. But so I think we're picking up our stride on the time trials piece. The solo team with Rick and Brian Mason, they're cranking. The pro solo team is cranking. I'm excited about that. Really excited. We're getting a lot of really positive feedback on the Club Spec program,
right,
with the NC Miata platform and with the 197 Mustang platform. And we're trying to figure out which platform's most popular. And I'm hearing about a lot of Mustang builds right now.
So I was just going to say, I don't know numbers, obviously. That will bear out as the entries start to come in
time.
But when just anecdotally looking at the Facebook page,
yeah,
and I don't know if it's, Miata fatigue, or it's just something cool and shiny, but it does seem to me like there's a lot more Mustangs being built than Club Spec Miatas.
Well, I don't know that that's not true, but right. I do know that there's a little red Miata in the Topeka parking lot.
Yeah, I heard about this.
That will be taken over, I believe, over to Jesse Prather Motorsports to get a little Club Spec love applied to it.
Nice.
And yeah, I think we'll be out there tooling that one around. But really excited about that. Hayward and the SEB and the Time Trials Board, everybody, all the program boards who have supported that have been absolutely fabulous. Obviously you got the Mustang thing kicked off with the Goodyear team going up there
so
to
much
the
fun
testing grounds and doing that. I mean, you should know that, I've given Dave Ogburn a few lessons, driving lessons. So
he said
I'm
that.
surprised he didn't tell you that.
No, he did.
Okay. I'm just lying.
Yeah.
I really appreciate him. He's a great driver, and he'll probably maybe not tune into your podcast anymore now that I've said that, but really excited about where that's going. And not only where that's going short term, Brian, I really am hopeful and optimistic that could be a club in our bag that we can expand going into 25, right? So no specifics on that yet. Obviously, we need to draw the string out on what's going to go on with the NC and the 197 platform this year, but a ton of participant interest. I mean, Hayward's got a great piece of research. The team did some really great research on the Club Spec program when it was in development. And I don't have the data points as clear and crisp as Hayward can recall them, but the number of people who said they would re-engage in the club based on a Club Spec concept, come back to the club based on a Club Spec concept, and or participate more in the club based on a club spec concept. I mean, it was really, really, really high. And
Right.
one of the things that made us so excited about the concept, and of course, a lot of the partners love it. Yeah, for good reason.
Sure.
Yeah, so really excited about where that one's going. We already talked about Spec MX5 a little bit on the road racing side. I think that's going to be a big lift for us. So I think we've got, quite a few things going on. Oh, and I don't want to forget, while it is our 80th anniversary this year as an organization,
Right.
it is the 10th anniversary for a thing called Track Night in America.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, in fact, in April, I believe it's April 10th, probably wrong, Hayward, forgive me. But they will be celebrating their 10th anniversary in April. And just real quick, top of mind, I think in 10 years, they put, north of 75,000 drivers through Track Night in America at over 1,000 events. And, to me, that is one of the, if you want to profile a candidate of success tied to creating access,
Right.
creating engagement, delivering a consistently fabulous experience, they do a damn good job with that.
Yeah, no question.
So, really excited about that. And I'm pretty confident that Hayward, Justin, Jenny, the Track Night team, I'm pretty sure they have a couple of tricks up their sleeve to celebrate the 10th anniversary. So, yeah, stick around in April. We'll probably hear more about that.
The only thing I need to find, and I'm trying, not that I'm in charge of anything, but we need to find a Track Night location here in Southern California. We lost our venue with Auto Club, and there really aren't many places in the metropolitan area to do this. And I think that's critical here in LA area.
For access, absolutely.
Yeah, because I don't think people want to go up on a Tuesday night to Buttonwillow. I love Buttonwillow, but it's a hike, and it's really not. But maybe a track night involved part of a race weekend might work out, just as a try it once kind of thing. But
I got my comp license at Buttonwillow, right?
Did you really?
Yeah. Ask off podcast, off camera. Ask Philip Royal about his weekend coaching me
to
get my comp license. That little rascal.
I love it.
Yes.
I love it. Dan Lohan says Club Spec NC ought to love here. So that's probably a Club Specker coming up with their car. Brian Straczynski loves Carry Speed, reads them all the time. Also was talking about the Flagtronics system and trying to get it to fit into a Formula car. Of course, the Straczynski's race Formula Vs. But that's a nice stepping off point. Feedback after the first race weekend from Flagtronics that I got was pretty positive. What is the club hearing?
Yeah, no, I think we heard similar things. I mean, speaking of big lifts, it's a pretty big lift, right? To go in and set up a new system. Actually, this week in Topeka, it was, speaking of Flagtronics, Eric, Indiana, and the Scotts, both Schmitty and Mr. Dobler, were all learning how to pack Pelican cases with all the bits and pieces required to set up Flagtronics and move it from Super Tour to Super Tour. So right now, I think, first event out, I think everybody was pretty excited with how well it worked. We still got, in transparency, we still got a fair learning curve in operating that and connecting stewards to that and, all the review process. But I think it's it's certainly the right direction. And, we're going to see it at all the Super Tour events this year, and it will be required for the runoffs. So I think we're definitely going the right direction.
Right.
And the Flagtronics team has been very gracious in supporting us and partnering with us. And I don't know if you know this, but basically the traveling system that we have is a no-cost system for us to travel and learn with. So
nice.
That mitigates asking each one of the tracks on the Super Tour to make the investment front end. We're trying to prove it first, and then we'll figure out next steps.
Yeah, and I think the more and more series that use it, the more and more drivers who get to use it, the more drivers in other organizations are going to demand having it. Right. And that's when tracks are going to start to have to purchase it. Just like at some point in time, they had to purchase timing and scoring systems back when we all moved to transponders and have all of that stuff put in.
Yep.
And I've had a lot of experience with it prior to SCCA, and it is a fantastic safety tool and a communications tool. And I think I'm a huge proponent of it. And as a broadcast, as the guy in the booth talking about it, the information the data I get from it to be able to share, I have a hard time sounding intelligent to start with. So anything I can use to sound like I know what's going on is a huge help to be able to see where the tow trucks are, what's moving to an incident, where the yellow flag pops up, and also it gives us the car number attached to. People may not have seen the marching ants, but we can actually see which car is pulled over to a particular area. And then for the safety folks, when there is an impact, it transmits the amount of G impact for that car if it hits something hard. And that's great information for the people in the red trucks with the flashy lights, to know as they're coming up to a scene, maybe there's 3 cars involved, and car 52 is the one that took the big shunt. Now those guys know that's the one we're going to go to first, because that was the one that hit hard. And you can't get that information any other way. It's just, I think in the end, it's always growing pains. Always people are going to say, I don't know, got to buy another $250 piece of equipment, blah, 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 blah. But once everyone has it and gets used to it, I think just like transponders, they're going to love having it.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think it is. I mean, there's quite a few sanctioning bodies that are already using it as mandatory equipment. And so we're drafting off some of their learning curve as well as we go into it. So excited about it, and we're going to keep learning at every Super Tour, and put that to good use for us going forward.
Brian Trzynski asks, is there a plan to have the big LED flag boards around the track in addition to the human flags? Yes, there is. And I don't know how many flag boards are going to be in the SCCA system. I believe there'll be enough for every corner station. And if they aren't, there will be at some point in time. But that is part of the plan, Brian, from the way I understand it. So, all right. So we're coming close to the end of our time here. Anything else you want to share? Any breaking news you want to give to us? The floor is yours.
Let me see if I can pull this off here. I can't share it. I was going to share you a picture of the Motley Crew from Turn 6, but it's a wise move to not have screen sharing enabled with me on the podcast. So no, I think we're off to a good start. Again, kind of back up to the top. Our collective focus this year, it's certainly on growth, but how do we get growth? I think it's a combination of focusing on engagement, access, delivering a good, solid experience and improving that everywhere we can. And, this is the whole idea behind Club Spec, trying to drive cross participation. I mean, the whole concept of a car to do all the things, it's not a new concept, but we're investing time, money, and resources in alignment with what members have told us they would do if we did a good job with that. And I think all of those things, they don't work separate from one another. They're all kind of inextricably woven together. And I think if we focus on that collectively and work collaboratively as a team, we'll get growth. I mean, I just talked with Amy Tennis, our Director of Member Services today, who was just promoted to Director, by the way, in the month of January, and certainly deserves it. But we're back over 50,000 full-time members ending the month of January. And I know the rank and file might not care about that, but we hit our budgeted number for membership in the month of January, which is always a great way to start the year. So
fantastic.
I'm excited about the club. I'm excited about where we're going. I'm excited about folks working together to grow the club. I'm excited about the talent investments we're making. And I really appreciate, Brian, you continuing to give me a place to share some of the things we're doing and focus on. And can't wait to hear you and 5G live from NOLA. So excited to do that next.
NOLA, and then the following weekend we've got back-to-back Super Tours, NOLA and then Buttonwillow. So I'm actually the one race I get my wife to want to go to is NOLA. So she's going to come, and we're going to spend a couple of days in the quarter doing jazz clubs between the two events, taking a whole week of vacation, and then she'll be okay to let me go racing for the rest of the year. and then we're going to fly back on Thursday, and I'm going to do a load of laundry and come up to Buttonwillow and do it all again the next weekend. So
I understand that model, sir. I'm headed home to DFW Tomorrow, I've got a half day to wash, repack, and head to lovely Scranton, Pennsylvania for Friday and Saturday knee diff. So, yep.
There you go. There you go.
That's the way it rolls.
Oh, wrong button. All right. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Inside the SCCA. Mike, thank you.
You bet. Thank you, sir.
And
Appreciate it.
Maybe we'll do it again in 50 more episodes.
Let's do it. Put it on the calendar. Let's do it.
All right. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to the RacingWire Podcast Network so you can get all of the information every week here. It would also be great if you leave a comment, especially if it's a good one. If it's not, put it on some other podcast channels, social media. You can find us on social media at RacingWireNet on Twitter, Inside the SCCA every week on Wednesday nights live on YouTube, and then Fridays on the Old School Podcast channel. I'm Brian Bielanski. We'll be back next week. Go out, have fun, and have fun with cars. Inside the SCCA is a presentation of the RacingWire Podcast Network and Rural 15 Productions. This podcast is not affiliated with, endorsed, or sponsored by the Sports Car Club of America. The views expressed within are those of the host and our guests, and not that of the SCCA.